Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2-Point Conversion, live here on the Going for Two Live network. My name is Kyle Senra. Joining me are my co-hosts, my partners in this, Gladys Louise Tyler, Dr. James Ferretti. Gladys, how are you doing? I'll start with you.
I'm hanging in there. How are you, Kyle? Up in Canada.
It's great up here. Officially fall, it's colder. At this point, it's what typical American October, November are like. Leaves falling.
Yeah.
Leaves falling. It's getting colder. Lately it's been more rain, but yeah. Enough about the weather, though. We're not the weather experts here. We're the experts, or at least we have an injury expert here in Dr. James Ferretti. Doc, how you doing?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, happy Monday, guys. Well, it's encouraging. It was a little bit better on the injury front this week than it was the last couple of weeks. Admittedly, that bar is set very low, but we do have a few injuries that we can talk about and some interesting stuff going into Monday night. Even a couple of those players, as my Raiders are going for 4-0 tonight. Who would have thought that? Against the hated Los Angeles Chargers. Although I heard that they're going to try to black out Charger Stadium, since it's almost going to be like a home game for the Raiders. They're bringing out all the LA contingent, all the stops, and the silver and black is going to hopefully have a big showing there, so it should be fun.
I saw just like a few minutes of the Monday night countdown, and it was nothing but Raiders fans. It's
going to be pretty wild. It's going to be like a home game.
Because we'll talk about it later, but like the 3-point favorites that the Charge, because usually home teams get that 3-point favorites. I wonder, maybe they in hindsight should have given that to the Raiders,
right?
But yeah, but yeah, that's not the Monday night preview yet. That's where it's first, right? Right. The bad news.
Yes.
Actually, bear some good news. Josh Jacobs is active.
Yes.
I think it was I know there was a few dealing with, but the toe injury seemed to be the one that held him out. So, Doc, what do we expect tonight? Do you think he's going to get his full workload? It seems like Kenyon Drake was always going to be the pass catcher anyway, but do you think it's like a 50-50 split with him and Peyton Barber, or are they just going to give all the early down work to Jacobs?
It's a really good question, Kyle. Like, I'll be honest with you, this whole situation with Josh Jacobs, it's not very often that I get completely flummoxed by an injury scenario or injury situation, and this one has got me totally confused because he missed 2 weeks. I was starting to get a little nervous as to what might actually be going on. He's a game-time decision. Now he's active. The presumption going into the year is that if he missed any time, then Kenyon Drake was going to step in and Peyton Barber was going to be depth. And it looks like Peyton Barber is the one who's really had the hot hand there. So he's taken a more significant chunk of Jacobs' work in his absence. And now Kenyon Drake's been kind of left to the waysides. And now that Jacobs is back, I really don't know how any of this is going to shake out. Do you guys have a feel on this? Because for very rarely am I at a loss for words, but I am at a loss for words here. I don't know where to go with this.
Well, purely from a selfish point of view, I'm hoping Peyton Barber gets most of the carries because I playing him tonight. But I think that if Gruden stands to what Gruden stands to, I don't think Jacobs it's not going to be a 50-50 split, probably 25-75 Jacobs on the 25 end. I don't see him, trying to if the game script goes their way, I don't see him trying to hustle him out there when he knows, that he is pretty much their bell cow. So I'm going to go 25-75, but that's if they're controlling the game too.
Okay. So for anyone maybe considering playing Josh Jacobs tonight, you'd maybe look to avoid it and say if you could pay a wide receiver instead of even a Bryan Edwards or Ruggs, there's maybe more upside than with Jacob not getting the full workload.
Yeah, and I think there's risk here, and there's also risk, we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but that we could see, like we saw with Dalvin Cook, where Dalvin Cook going into the game, I remember reading a quote where he said, "Expect me to be me." Well, Dalvin Cook's definition of what he is very different than my definition of what my expectations are for him on the football field, because that was not him. That was 30 to 40% of him, and he actually got out carried by Alexander Madison again. So he re-injured himself. So in addition to the three-headed monster that they have there, there's also the risk of whatever's going on with Jacobs. His toe, his ankle, something else happens, and he just ends up getting re-injured. And that's presuming that he's the hot hand and he's doing well. If he goes in and he's not producing, then I think his snap share is going to suffer from that as well. So there's a lot of risk associated with this. It's tough because it's a Monday night game. So what are your other options? Do you have any other options? But even somebody like Jared Cook, I might consider over him in a flex spot just because there's so much uncertainty surrounding that. And at least with Cook, like you could get a touchdown, you can get some receptions, you can get some points. It also depends on what you need, but that's kind of the way that I'm thinking about it is like, yeah, if you have a better option, be better to go with that than this.
Is SoFi Stadium real grass or is it turf?
It's a really good question.
I don't know.
I will look that right now. So any other questions in the meantime?
Yeah.
Sorry.
What's the capacity? How big is the Jumbotron?
Yeah.
What are they known for? Like, we're in the concession stand. What's their top seller? Like, see if you can find the answers.
I believe I think the capacity. I believe it's like it rivals Jerry World. It might even be bigger than the Cowboys Stadium.
It's bigger than
100,000 capacity.
Yeah, it's bigger than Jerry World.
Capacity looks like its normal capacity is 70,000, but it can get up to over 100,000 if they do for like a Super Bowl. They're saying WrestleMania, Summer Olympics, other major events they're planning. They feel like 100,000. They saying 100,240 is the capacity. Is it turf or not? This is great radio because Kyle tries to read.
In the bathroom, do they use liquid soap or do they use like that stuff that we had in high school, like that the granulated soap?
You see, I'm more concerned with use like hand dryers or like a towel dispenser.
Yeah.
I'd much rather use a towel. I feel like it's more effective.
Is it individual or is there troughs? Like these are the questions that the people want to know.
Yeah, people are clamoring for the answers.
All right, well, we'll work on that. In the meantime, let's talk about Dalvin Cook since we brought him up. He missed all of week 3 after not practicing all week. Played in week 4, said he was going to be his normal self. He was not. So I don't know if he went in with the best of intentions and then re-injured himself. My guess is he probably wasn't at 100% to start with and then got re-injured. So what do you do with him going forward? I think he's probably going to be limited this week, and he may end up missing week 5 in an attempt to let the ankle heal some more. And then we're back in like this Alex Madison Twilight Zone. But if he plays this week, he's got the Lions at home. He's going to be really tough to bench. With that matchup, if he's out there, then I think you got to run with him. And, you could end up getting more of the same, or he could have a monster game. My kind of hope is that he gives us a chance to heal, because 1 week, and change for an ankle sprain, even a low ankle sprain, is not a lot of time. And for a high ankle sprain, it's no time at all. So if he's really dealing with that and it's limiting him like it obviously is, I hope he at least gives it a couple of weeks. Otherwise, people that own Dalvin, have shares of Dalvin Cook are potentially going to be dealing with this on again, off again thing for a while. And I'm sure that's not what we were looking forward to if you were a Dalvin Cook manager.
I have a question. It's listed, Justin Herbert's hand is listed. What's wrong with Justin Herbert's hand?
He didn't make the final injury report. So whatever it was, it doesn't look like it's a concern. I think he might have banged it or he had some kind of finger injury or something.
Okay.
So, but he's off the injury report, so he's good to go.
What happened was he injured it in the game. He injured it against the Chiefs off someone's helmet, and like he was questionable at points during the week.
Right.
But the final injury report, he wasn't listed as questionable. Actually, it was Keenan Allen that was listed questionable. That we weren't sure if he was playing, but like it seemed like there was, even though he was questionable, like it seemed like everything was pointing to him, so that like he is playing. By the way, for everyone to know.
Okay, good. Yeah, I haven't heard. I remember that from last week, and I never heard any. He just like had a bunch of limited practices, and then it was like, okay, we'll see. But he did burn people last year, where he did the same thing, and he actually got deactivated and was out for like 2 or 3 weeks towards the end of the year. So I remember that. So good to see that he's going to be out there.
Let's talk about Jimmy G's calf, because I played him in DFS, and I'm really, really unhappy about that.
That's rough, yeah.
Yeah, it was rough.
So it looks like, so you never know with this. He just went left with a calf injury, and it's like, is it a strain or did something else happen? It looks like he got stepped on. So as of right now, they're calling it a contusion or a bruise. They're going to kind of wait and see with it. Depending where it is, this could be nothing. My kind of presumption going into it was I was worried that maybe he was going to miss a couple of weeks. But he may not. He may be fine. The only caveat that I have to this is I saw something similar in baseball this year. Early in the year, Cody Bellinger, also in the Bay Area, or also in California, in LA, got stepped on covering first base and got cleated, basically. And they said, no big deal, he'll be back in a couple of days. Long story short, he actually broke the bone on that side, the fibula, the little bone that runs down the outside of your leg. And, he wasn't able to come back. He kept having setbacks. And finally, they rescanned him. He broke his fibula. He had a small crack in his fibula, and he was out for weeks. So I'm hoping that's not the case with Jimmy G. But even though they're calling it a bruise now, still no guarantees that he's going to be ready this week, although I am optimistic, provided they don't find anything else. I'm more optimistic now than I was when I woke up this morning and was thinking about, like, calf injuries, think about Michael Gallup and things like that. Like, that could be a couple of weeks. And Gallup, they immediately made him like 3 to 5 weeks because they knew how bad it was. So that was on the table. Looks like it's not that. It's just a bruise. But hopefully there's nothing else going on that they haven't discovered yet.
Okay, cool. Sorry, Trey Lance.
Yeah, Trey Lance season may not yet be upon us, but it might. And it was interesting to see him get in there and do his thing.
By the way, I just looked it up, and SoFi is turf. Now, while we are half joking with all the bathroom toilet paper and whatnot, I guess with the turf,
I was very serious about it. I want to know after the show. I want you to tell me, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
I didn't find that information. But with grass to turf, is there something like? Is there a difference for, especially like players' injuries? Is there one that's better or worse to be on? Like, what is the real difference in terms of the end result of ball players, grass to turf?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I'll try to be as brief as I can with this. But if you think about, most of us, I think we've all played on grass at some point, either in our lives or just playing outside. And grass is softer, and it has there's a give to it. Like, dirt is compressible, and if you hit the ground, like, sure, it can hurt, but there's some give to it. With especially the old turf, like AstroTurf and things like that, it was basically just carpet that is placed over concrete or some other really hard surface that doesn't have give to it. So it's a harder surface. It's harder on the joints, and it doesn't have there's a friction component to it where if you slide on grass, you kind of just slide. For those soccer fans out there, you see a guy score a goal and he's on natural grass and he can slide on his knees and celebrate with the crowd, and he doesn't really hurt himself. With turf, you kind of hit the ground and you stick, and then you just kind of slide and rip your skin all up. So that is obviously suboptimal for people when you hit the ground. So that's another aspect of it, that you kind of rip your skin up. It's harder on your joints. There's just less give to it. And then there's this other substance called field turf, which is basically an artificial surface that is on kind of like a rubber surface, and there's individual blades of fake grass that kind of mimic more of a natural grass surface. So given that this is a new stadium, my hope and guess would be that it's field turf, which is pretty similar to natural grass as far as the surface playing area. But old stadiums, like I'm trying to think of ones that that use the AstroTurf, MetLife. Yes, MetLife used to get all complaints. The old Philly Veterans Stadium, they said that there were areas where the turf was patched, and there were like, a foot difference in some areas where it's like you were stepping in a hole, and if you happen to get tackled at the same time, really put the players at risk. And there were some places where it was softer, it was harder, it was really kind of prone to injury. So that is the short version of the history of turf in the NFL. So generally speaking, for players that have joint injuries and things like that, turf is less forgiving, and it's times where you're more susceptible to turf toe, sprains, knee injuries. dislocating a shoulder or an AC joint or something like that, where you make an impact and then there's just less give to it, so all the force is transmitted into the joint and the joint kind of pops, as opposed to with grass, the force is more evenly distributed. There's some give in the ground and the force is distributed more evenly. So there you go.
Yeah, so just what I conceive of it, it's Hellas is the company that I don't know if make the stadium, makes the turf, and they're talking about the turf has bounced back, it's similar in the memory and tenacity of a muscle fiber. So they're trying to use that turf to mimic it. So it does seem like it's that more closer to grass turf that you were speaking of, Doc.
Okay, all right. Well, then I wouldn't really worry about it too much. It would be more if you're playing. I don't even know if any of the old stadiums in the any of the stadiums in the NFL even use the old type of turf anymore, because that feels like it would be an NFLPA like nightmare as far as like when they were collectively bargaining. I know the players were up in arms about it.
I thought that's what the Niners were complaining about last year when they went to New Jersey to play. That's why they had so many injuries, was because the field they were playing on was
no good.
Less than optimal.
Yeah. Okay. And that may be one of the last ones. I know it was really bad, like before they revamped it, and now it still sounds like it's not up to snuff.
So still, like with Josh Jacobs, I think we're all kind of saying be hesitant this week, like be cautious.
Yeah, proceed with extreme caution this week.
Yeah, because the way I think Peyton Barber doing well for them in a win is probably going to go a long way. Saying they're not just going to have him ride the bench. Now I know there's one league I'm narrowly winning by like 7 points, and my opponent only has Peyton Barber, so I'm kind of just hoping, okay, get nothing. Ride the bench the whole time, you don't get anything, and no risk. But I feel like that's not that safe. I think he's going to be involved in it. Kind of a nightmare 3-way committee. So yeah, I'd look to play receivers over Josh Jacobs in this game. Like let's say you had Josh Palmer for the Chargers, the rookie wide receiver. Would you risk him, Josh Jacobs?
I probably wouldn't. I think that's the line. I think that's the line right there between Jared Cook and Palmer. there's where Jacobs fits in.
And again, I think Renfro is probably certainly a yes, but Ruggs and Edwards, how about those two?
Yeah, I would play both of them over Jacobs at this point.
All right. Before we talk more injuries, do you have a question? Okay. I traded J-Robs. So James Robinson and Tyler Bolt for Devontae Adams. Did I win the trade? Well,
yes, you did.
Clamp FM. Yeah, like I'm not even going to ask for the format in terms of dynasty or redraft, because I feel like either way, it's probably a win. Maybe you could even in dynasty, I'd still take Adams. Yes, I love running backs, and I'm the running back guy, right? But I agree. I would take Adams side and. Yeah. Well, single quarterback, super flex.
Kyle is Mr. Running Back. So if you get him to take the Devontae Adams side on this one, then you know you really did something.
Also, Packers fan, to be fair. But Gladys, what are you thinking?
No, I think he won the trade for sure, easily.
Okay. Well, there you go. Hopefully, not only do we help you make you feel good, but Adams scores points for you, and you're well. But yeah, so
if anybody asks you what the format is for that trade, you tell them it doesn't matter what the format is.
I guess it doesn't matter what format it is. If you're rostering David Montgomery, it just sucks right now.
Yes,
it seems like the news. So injury, how severe is the David Montgomery's injury, Doc?
Yeah, so David Montgomery, for those of us that didn't know about it, he injured his knee. Early testing suggested it's not an ACL injury, which is the good news. Bad news is there's lots of other things that are in play: ligaments, tendons, bone bruise, like we saw with his teammate Andy Dalton a couple of weeks ago. My expectation is this is going to be a couple of weeks and maybe longer. They're still kind of working him up, but I would be very, very surprised if he is out there week 5, even week 6. So I'd start making other plans. Damien Williams looks like he's the next one up. He also had a thigh injury in that game. He was doing pretty well. Looks like it's just a thigh bruise. So I would be surprised if he's not the lead dog in week 5. And Tariq Cohen's not expected to be back to week 7. The only caveat to all this is, Damien Williams definitely the guy I'd be going out to get. If for some reason he has a setback, then Khalil Herbert was a very interesting prospect out of Virginia Tech, who they took in the 6th round, and he would kind of be the last man standing and could actually surprise some people. As you know, a lot of, I think, more casual fans may not even know who he is. Those of us in dynasty format probably know him a lot better. But DFS play and even season-long play, he would be very interesting if he was going to get the start, if for some reason Damien Williams was out as well.
What about Teddy Bridgewater?
Teddy Bridgewater, it looks like it was a concussion, so he's in the concussion protocol. Not a whole lot to speak about yet. Just going to have to watch the practice reports. So this is something kind of, it's a lot of times it's person dependent, how fast they kind of progress. We saw with Trey Sermon earlier this year, he was in the concussion protocol and progressed pretty rapidly and was able to play the next week. And with Elijah Moore, he was in the concussion protocol and it took him out of this week's game. Looks like he's almost out of the protocol, so he's looking better for next week. But it's just one of those things that you have to watch, and it can be 0 weeks or it could be multiple weeks, and it's really just person dependent. And you can advance and then have setbacks, and that can just give you not enough time to make it back for this week's game. So Drew Locke certainly looked like he was, he looked like he was Drew Locke, but he's somebody, and if you're in a super flex league, then he's going to potentially be a starting quarterback. They might just be hanging out there on waivers.
I mean, outside of this game that he left with the concussion, Teddy Bridgewater's 3-0 as a starter, right? So to be Drew Locke's going to have to win games. It can't just be, he's playing well. Like, he's got to actually win games for that old school. Have to want to say he's going to be the starter. So I'd expect Bridgewater to get his job back once it's there. Now, that being said, starting quarterbacks in Superflex, even if it's for 1 or 2 weeks, so certainly, I guess in a Superflex league, I'm assuming Drew Locke's rostered anyway, but if he wasn't, then you definitely want to pick him up now. I mean, let's see, who do they play next week?
Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh.
That's a fairly tough defense, actually. So he might be like QB3, and you're not confident in your QB2, and you can play him then. But if you have to play Drew Locke, I suppose it then you're having to decide, okay, in a super flex Drew Locke, or do I just play an extra non-quarterback in that flex spot? But I guess it depends on the scoring. If it's something crazy like the Scott Fishbowl scoring, for instance, with all the points for incompletions and things like that, that's one where against the Steelers I might be pretty hesitant to play Drew Locke, because it seems like all their guys are healthy. Hayden played, Bush played, Watt played, so not the greatest matchup, I don't think.
Yeah, certainly interesting.
What does, in the short term, do we like it for the Broncos receivers, or is it no effect? I know Noah Fant finally got a touchdown with Drew Locke, so I don't know, does he benefit from this temporarily, or we just we don't really want to play any Broncos next week?
I would play the Broncos defense.
Fair enough, yeah. I think Sutton and Fant are both playable. It'd be tough to play the running backs, though, I think.
I don't know. I don't know if I play any of the offensive players. It depends on who's quarterback. I don't think it matters. No. If Drew Locke is quarterbacking, I don't think I would play any of the offensive players, because I think the Steelers will that front line and get to him, which means he is going to be scrambling a lot. And the same with Teddy B. I mean, I don't think I'd play him against the Steelers defense.
So Broncos D, but Steelers D, if they're available, that'd be one, especially considering they're just coming off a game with the Packers that have been dropped before that game, or might be available. So so some defensive talk here. Will Fuller with an injury to his hand. So what do we know about that?
Yeah,
Doc.
So Will Fuller broke his finger, and they've already kind of said that he's week to week. So this, for a receiver, obviously, like an injury to the hands is, could be more worrisome than some of the other positions. But it sounds like it's a pretty decent break. I don't know if you're thinking about surgery at this point. That certainly could be on the table. But to have somebody already kind of with a broken finger, already kind of made week to week, which is a pretty bad prognostic indicator. This is definitely going to be something that I'm going to be watching. And, expectation is he's not going to play this week, and it could be multiple weeks after this. He may need surgery, but it sounds like it's a bad injury. Whatever it is, it's not like kind of a chip fracture like Trey Lance had or something like that, where it wasn't really concerning. So this is definitely concerning to me that this could turn out to be a multi-week absence.
Is he droppable and read
before?
What's that?
What was he out for before?
He was suspended for one game. He had a personal issue another week, and then he might have had a hamstring or something.
Okay.
Or maybe I'm just going off a historical trend.
I think he in week 3, but then he left with a hamstring injury, but then came back and then played last week. So it hasn't really been a great tenure so far with the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Is he droppable in redraft? Are we that concerned with the injury that just want to get him off the roster and free up the roster space?
Yeah, I wouldn't drop him yet until I knew more. If it was something where, like, let's say that it is something where he has a compound break and he has his finger is in multiple pieces, and they need to put a pin in it or something in order to get it to go back together, and he's going to be wearing a cast for a month or month and a half, then maybe we talk about it. But as of right now, if he's going to miss a couple of weeks, then I think it's okay to hold on to him just until we know more, and then you can kind of make an informed decision off of that for now.
So put words in your mouth, but it kind of sounds like the range of outcome could be 2 weeks or 7-8 weeks. And I think again,
it could be a week
longer
or two,
stretch. That's what we're
7.
Okay, so if it's on that 6 to 7 range and it's half the fantasy season, that's the point where you're dropping him. But if it's only going to be 2 weeks,
then you might want to move on. Yeah.
Okay, I think just because that Dolphins offense hasn't been great anyway, I don't know what the upside. I'm kind of fine dropping him in under any redraft. Just because I don't offense, I want to be holding players in. If it was a Chiefs receiver, sure, but I think the Dolphins right now with that quarterback situation, I'm not so impressed. So I'd be okay just dropping him straight up, even if it doesn't.
Yeah, the only caveat I have to that is that the thing with Will Fuller is he's always impressed me as a guy. Like when he's healthy, you start him, and on a points per game basis, he's always been really good. So if he were to be out for 6 or 7 weeks and you had an IR spot or you had room to hold him or, whatever, it's not a super shallow league, then he could potentially be coming back at the time where bye weeks are really hitting, other injuries have happened, and you're down the stretch. And even if he got you 2 or 3 games and he really kind of stepped up his production, because he's an electric player, and we've seen him do it with, different situations, like points per game wise. It's like you don't draft him for season long expecting that he's going to be consistently there every week. You draft him for the weeks that he's going to be available, and you just don't know when they're going to be. But the presumption is it's maybe somewhere in the order of 5 to 10 out of 16 or 17 weeks. And then on those weeks you play him, and whatever you get, you get. But usually when it's good, it's very good. So,
although, I just haven't seen the good this year. He's won 123 on the season.
Yeah, small sample.
Yeah, no,
size.
for sure.
He's
but
had some issues. So
2 games. Well, he's played 2 games and he's left both with injuries. And he's both.
This is who he is. This is what he does.
Yeah.
This is what he does. So it's kind of like, if you think about it, there's another analogy. I'll use the baseball analogy where it's like if you have a pitcher who starts out the season and he gets rocked 3 or 4 starts in a row, then he'll get sent to the minor leagues or he'll get benched or moved to the bullpen. But if you have a pitcher who's doing really well and then in the middle of a really good stretch, he gets rocked 3 or 4 times in a row, his overall numbers don't really suffer that much and nobody really thinks that much about it. So it's kind of context is important. Because he hasn't done anything, it looks worse than maybe it is. If he were to have a bunch of really good games, which may be coming down the road, and he had them already, and then he threw up a couple of clunkers in week 10 or week 11, I don't think anybody bats an eyelash. But because he's injured, because he missed a game already with a suspension, he missed another one with a personal issue, whatever that was, and we just haven't seen much from him. Those good games could still be coming. We just haven't seen them yet. So, prospective bias versus retrospective bias, that's important to come into play. But your team structure matters too. And how much are you hurting with injuries? Do you have more pressing needs? What's your team record? Are you really scuffling at this point? Maybe you do need to move on. So I completely respect that perspective as well.
Gladys, any thoughts before we get to this question that does relate to the injury? So thank you, Brendan, for that.
I admire the Doc's sense of optimism, but I'm dropping Will Fuller.
Okay. I'm on Will Fuller Island.
But I admire the Doc's sense of optimism concerning Will Fuller a lot.
All right. Well.
Anyway, so we were about to get to these players, so nice transition here. Brandon Burke asking, I have Gronk and Logan Thomas, and he wants to know, what does the doc think / dropping either one, and who are some decent waiver wire tight ends? So this is a PPR league. So I guess so we know Gronk missed with the rib injury, so I guess the first question is there to miss additional games, or was this just a 1 week injury?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go out on a little bit of a limb here with Gronk. So originally his X-rays were negative. Then they find out it was kind of like Drew Brees last year, where it's like X-rays were negative. Oh, by the way, he's got a fractured rib. Oh, by the way, he's got multiple broken ribs. Oh, by the way, he's got a punctured lung. Oh, by the way, like maybe we might have to put him down like a thoroughbred horse in the Kentucky Derby. And luckily it didn't come to that. But with Gronk, same thing. Now he's got multiple fractures, and one of the fractured pieces actually punctured and collapsed part of his lung. And that's the kind of injury that we see in car accidents. And we saw this with Tyrod Taylor last year. Of course, it wasn't a punctured lung. It was a needle from a trainer giving him a pain-killing injection. But this, I think, is going to be a multi-week absence for Gronk, and it could potentially be a season ender. Like, they're not going to let him go back out there with a jagged piece of rib that's just hanging out there that's ready to puncture and injure his lung again. You need your lungs. They're important. So this could be it could be weeks, it could be a month, he could be done. He could be done for the year. So like on the DEFCON scale of like DEFCON 5 is okay. Like Herbert is DEFCON 5, he's playing tonight, no worries. DEFCON 1 is DJ Chark, broke his ankle out for the year. I got Gronk at a DEFCON 2. Like I'm just kind of waiting and hoping, but I have a feeling that we might have seen the last of Gronk for this year. So he's definitely somebody that I would be leaning more towards like getting away from. I think this is at least going to be best case multi-week absence, and worst case he might be done for the year.
Okay. So what would you do?
Brandon,
would you drop him? Or would you put him if they don't have an IR position?
Yeah, if they don't have an IR slot, oh man, it's I think you and if you have both Logan Thomas and you have Gronk, I think you gotta get away from Gronk. If you have to make a move right now, if you can't like wait until tomorrow or whatever and get an additional report, like I'd have to get away from Gronk at this point. And honestly, maybe if somebody else wants to take a chance and pick him up, and it's like that 10 or 20% chance that he's back in a couple of weeks, and you tip your hat. But I think this is, punctured lung is not something to kid around with. Like I said, this is the type of injury we see with car accidents. So I'd love it if they would give us some more clarity on this, but if you put a gun to my head and you say I got to drop one of them, even though Gronk has that high upside, I just don't know if we're going to see him again. I really don't. So the only thing that's keeping him in the game is the fact that the Tampa Bay's been so good, and I want to have as many pieces of that offense as possible. But if it wasn't Tampa Bay and it wasn't Tom Brady throwing like he did in week 1 and week 2 and having that potential for 5 touchdowns every week and Gronk catching 2 touchdowns every week, then I would say drop him with no hesitation whatsoever. That's my only caveat to that.
I would say, like, in terms of clarity, Braden, how many bench spots do you available on the team? I think if it's, deep enough rosters, you can roster things there. But having to roster 3 tight ends if you only have 6 bench spots, that's a little tricky. A third of your bench just on 2 tight ends that are hurt. But I guess by comparison, so it seems like you're not as Logan Thomas. But what do we know about Logan Thomas's injury?
Yeah, so Logan Thomas, hamstring injury. He's kind of week to week. He's very similar to the rash of hamstring injuries that we saw last week with Slayton and Shepard, and even Amari Cooper picked up kind of a little hamstring thing. So both of those guys missed a week, and then it's kind of wait and see. So regardless, I think you're most likely going to be without both of these tight ends for this week, and you got to focus on that because you need a starting tight end. So, if you need 2 spots, then drop Gronk, move Logan Thomas to IR. If you can manage to, if you can find some way to just kind of patch it forward, patch it up for a week and then see. I've always been of the mindset that if you're projecting more than 2 weeks ahead in season-long football, you're projecting too far because the landscape is too volatile and you don't really know what you're dealing with. You can be completely healthy 1 week, get a bunch of injuries the week after, and bye weeks, and now you're 6 people down, and you have no way to be able to anticipate that. So as far as free agent pickups, Dawson Knox might be out there. Gladys, if you want to speak on Pat Fryermuth, he looked kind of interesting and is probably somebody that's not picked up in a lot of shallow leagues. Max Williams.
Conklin.
What's that?
Tyler Conklin's probably out there.
Tyler Conklin, Max Williams on Arizona.
CJ Usman-Zama.
CJ Usman-Zama. That he had a really big game on Thursday night. I can't imagine he's rostered in a lot of leagues. And then Jared Cook from going tonight pending. But he's kind of like an unloved veteran who's just been kind of hanging out and putting up close to double-digit numbers every week, and certainly has upside for more.
Okay, so Brandon is saying he has an injury spot, but this does get tricky because especially if you're saying with the hamstring with Logan Thomas, it sounds like if it's only going to be a 1 or 2, the team's not going to put him on IR. So then it's back to relying on if Gronk goes on injured reserve. Now, if you can just freely put any player in the IR,
on IR, I think he just has to be questionable or worse.
Okay, so it depends on that's league regulations, of course. I know some leagues are stringent, like the player has to be on IR for them to be on your fantasy team IR. So then, if that's the case, you might be waiting too long for that to happen. So those options are good. Dalton Schultz is currently the tight end 3. Maybe he's available. That's a name. Mike Gesicki seems like he's starting to get targets now. Max Williams with currently the tight end 12 in full point PPR. That's an offense you kind of want to get pieces of too. It seems like he's been hit or miss every week, but at a certain point, that's all on the waiver wire. So what you want to look for is targets. If you're I know one of the things Yahoo, for instance, I love Yahoo's in that when you go to look up free agent players, you can sort by different stats, and I'd look at who are the free agents tight ends available, and I would sort by targets. Okay, who of the tight ends, who is getting the most targets? And because that's a real telling stat, more so than snap counts for tight ends, because some of those are blocking snaps, so they're out for a lot of snaps, but maybe not seeing targets. So just that's what I would do is kind of a simple way to order them is which of the free agent tight ends have the most targets so far this season, and then kind of prioritize through there. You can look at prioritize the matchups, who you think on a given week could score your points. It might be one of those where if you're waiting missing Gronk, all you're looking for is a week 1 matchup. Okay, which of these free agent best matchup for week 5, and then you get through that, and then you figured this out the same thing week 6. So if no one great available, questionable or worse. So if Gronk's questionable right from the start of this week, then put him on IR and then pick up any of these tight ends for free. Again, who is the most targets, or if it's kind of flat from there, it's who is the best matchup next week is kind of how I'd go.
I like it.
One more question. I know, but before we get to that, Doc, was there anything you want to add to the injury? Are you thinking he might miss a week, but maybe nothing more, or do we not have him yet?
No, that's a good question. I definitely wanted to get into that. So the short version is he's had rib injuries. Now he picked up a hamstring injury, came back. Early reports are positive here, so it looks like he's going to be okay for this week. Unless he has some kind of setback during the week, I would expect to have him available. As far as Michael Gallup is concerned, it looks like he's not going to be back week 5. We may not see him again until after the bye. The only thing that I want to add, and if Amari Cooper ends up missing time or gets hurt again, don't look now, but Cedric the Unentertaining Wilson has scored a touchdown in 2 consecutive weeks. So he's at least giving you something. If you're rolling out there, you're getting a little piece of that offense, cheap piece. He's giving you something for the effort. So there may be more to come there, especially if Gallup has a setback, Cooper has a setback, and even the immortal CeeDee Lamb looked very mortal last week. So no guarantees there, but he's interesting. He's not exciting, but he's interesting.
Actually, just speaking of that, we talked about Dalton Schultz being the tight end 3 right now. Maybe Blake Jarwin's getting dropped. Also be another option for looking for a tight end back to Brandon question on tight ends. If Schultz is gone, maybe Darwin's available. So anyway, so yeah, the question now from Ryan. Thanks for the time and effort you put into this, and we appreciate that, Ryan, for sure. Also, Ryan. Shout out to Dan for giving it. Yes, yeah, and thanks for watching, viewing. He has Daniel Carlson tonight, the kicker. I know this is going for 2, but we'll still talk about kickers. What do you forecast for him? So just, I guess I'll start with the numbers. It's always where I like to go to. I look at one of the leagues where I have Carlson in. And I guess it depends on scoring settings for kickers. That could vary league to league. But he has, in 3 weeks, 9.5 points, 13.5, and then 10.5. So for me, in this league, pretty consistent right around that double-digit fantasy point mark. So in a dome situation, which the Raiders are used to playing at home, but now also get that here, I feel like that seems realistic to me. Make 2 or 3 field goals or get enough point after. So I would say around 9-10 fantasy points, realistic to me.
Gladys, what do you think? I'm gonna go last since it's the Raiders.
With the 51.5 over under 10 fantasy points, like they're not afraid to put him out there and have him kick field goals, which is what you want. So against the Chargers, I like 10. I think 10 is good. How many points do you need, Ryan? Or are you a leading already?
Yes, Carson left. What do I forecast for him? He didn't say yet, but I'm going to give you my completely you guys ready for this? My completely unbiased opinion. Raiders are going to win tonight, 73-6.
Oh my God.
So Carlson is going to score like 27, 28 points. So Ryan, it's in the bag, baby. You got it.
Completely unbiased, Ryan.
So I will say he's kicked at least 2 field goals every game, right? So even at the low end, I would expect you could probably get 5-6 points out of him at like the word. And I mean, he had 3 the game where he had 13.5 points. In one league, he had 3 kicks over 40 yards. So he's got the leg. And again, it's the stations. It's a dome. So indoors, so it shouldn't have any weather effects. So that's the scenarios you like for kickers, to be honest. So just to continue on with Ryan,
he only needs 8 points to win. Ryan only needs 8 points from Carlson.
So I think it's within the range of outcomes, but it might not cheat. I mean, let's say all those drives.
I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to do it.
So unfortunately, we're rooting a bit against Doc's Raiders in that we don't want them to score touchdowns. We want them to just get soft in the red zone.
Right.
Just let him have 3 field goals, and then you can score your touchdowns. But
that's a lot of field goals.
Point afters, right? If the Raiders score, we hope
73-6. There's a lot of field goals in 7. It goes into 73. So I think it'll be all right.
Or even if there's 0 field goals and that's all point afters, at that point you probably have 8 touchdowns to get the 8 point afters. I don't know if they'll be going for 2 very much up that much either. Anyway, so he thanks. Brett for the injury analysis. I know Izzy wants to shout out and say hello.
Izzy.
Hi, Izzy.
Brendan, thank you for the question, my friend. Good luck.
You got this.
And so just to continue with Ron, he was saying, so he drafted CMC and Montgomery. So bad luck. He has Madison, Sermon, Mitchell, Gainwell, and Hines. Any of these going to hold up, or should I target from waivers?
That's fine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about CMC a little bit, then we can get into that while you ponder.
I guess if Dalvin Cook's out, then Madison and then one of the 49ers back, so you're probably good on to hold you through.
Gainwell played well yesterday too, so Gainwell
is doing better than we expected. Naeem Hines is always playable with that receiving upside, especially in PPR. And then between Sermon and Mitchell's trending up this week. G and I debated this in the off season. Kyle, you were around for some of these debates. I forget who's really high on Mitchell and who was high on Sermon. It was one of us. I can't remember who it was, but regardless, either one.
Like Sermon.
Is that what it was? I forget.
You do remember. Never mind. You're being facetious.
I couldn't remember if he was high on Sermon or not. I thought he was, but I wasn't positive.
Yeah.
But either way, one of those guys should play.
Sorry,
should be available. Gee, I'm just kidding. Don't get mad at me. So I think one of those guys would be really good. But let's talk about CMC. He might actually be back this week. He's going back to practice on Wednesday. He's going to try to give it a go. They haven't put him on IR. We'll see. Is this the same old song and dance from last year where they kind of played this tape on us before? But if they're already thinking about he's going to be back in practice and maybe this really was minor and he's got a shot to be out there this week, and obviously if he's starting, you got to play him. Montgomery, I don't think he got so lucky. It's going to probably be a couple of weeks like we said. But certainly, CMC, if he's out there, you might not even need to worry about it so much. Speaking of same old song and dance, let's talk about the Bengals. So
yes, I was
the
hoping
thing
to
that
get
kind of got underplayed was Joe Mixon left the end of the Thursday night game. It was a great win by the Bengals against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But he left with an ankle injury, and they're calling it a low-grade sprain, but they didn't really distinguish between a low ankle sprain and a high ankle sprain. So I don't know if they're having a little fun with us. But my question to you guys is, here we go again. Last year they kind of did this with his foot, and they kind of jerked us around a little bit. Now, I don't want to go and say that the Bengals are bullshit artists when it comes to their injury reports. Like they are, I just don't want to say it. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Like this is kind of we've been fooled by the fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, right? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think first off, thanks for not saying it. But secondly, I think the fear with Mixon is what happens last year, right? Where it's only going to be a couple weeks, and then eventually it's shut down for the season, but they didn't decide that until end in the season. Now, what's the main difference between last year and this year? I feel like they've already tripled their win total from last year. So, right now they're tied for the AFC North lead. So if they're competing for a playoff spot, I feel like Mixon himself will be a lot more willing to come back. It seemed like what Mixon did is something similar to AJ Green the year before. If I'm not 100%, why am I coming back for this team? It was a bunch of games, right?
Yeah,
so
maybe.
I think that's the one edge this year that I feel like Mixon's. Yes, Dan, we are still going on about Mixon. The whole show's been about Mixon. You missed out. So that's my take. Is that again? If high ankle sprain, like that's the word we want to hear. We don't want to hear them say. But they're also not saying low ankle sprain for us to know that it's not a high ankle sprain, right?
They're
it's
playing,
tricky.
They're playing funny little games. So this is the important thing. This is the thing to take forward from this. They said low-grade sprain, but that doesn't mean low ankle sprain. You could still technically have a low-grade high ankle sprain, which is much worse. So are they playing little games with us? We're going to have to wait and see. If it is truly a low ankle sprain or a garden variety ankle sprain, then he could be out there this week. Maybe he misses a week. If it's a high ankle sprain, we've been over that many times. We know how that goes. 3, 4, 5 weeks, maybe more. So we just don't know yet. And I'm so the circle of trust with the Bengals has been broken. So I can't trust anything that they say now. So I'm waiting, and I'm, if I'm a Mixon, Mixon's on my roster, then I'm waiting and I'm hoping, but I'm not really feeling confident in the information that they're giving me up to this point. So it's more wait and see on that.
I guess because it's so easy to put players on injured reserve and it's not so restrictive, only missing 3 weeks. Will that be really key? Like if it's not a high ankle sprain, then they won't put them on IR. But if it is a high ankle sprain, they will put them on IR. Are we kind of hoping for that type of clarity? Not so much what they say, but what they do.
I mean, I would hope for them to say something other than low grade. If they say that if it's a low sprain, then that's one thing. If they say mid or high sprain, then that's something else. If they put him on IR, I think we can infer that that it's a high ankle sprain and he's going to be out for 3 weeks plus. So that would be a good way to read between the lines, Kyle.
So Dan, we did lie. We actually didn't talk about Mixon the whole time. We did talk about Jimmy G a little. Is Jimmy G done? Is he saying hashtag Trey is ready? Unfortunately, you don't have to convince us. You have to convince Kyle Shanahan.
There you go.
But I guess the shimmy off what we were talking about earlier is now it's seeming like Jimmy G could play next week. Trey Lance might not even get the start like that everyone was expecting. So it seems as if Jimmy G is not in fact done. But I think we're done with the injuries for tonight, unless someone in the meantime.
Let's do a couple of quick hitters, and then we can.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If Dan is still listening, Dan, what's your daughter's name? Okay, and go ahead. And go, guys.
I think it's Alexandra. Is that right? Well,
no, I thought we go with the M.
It might be. But it's her birthday. So happy birthday.
It's her birthday yesterday.
Oh, okay. Well, happy
belated.
We'll get her name at some point. All right. So while we're waiting for Dan's daughter's name.
Oh, it is Alexandria. Look at
All right.
you, Doc.
Gladys got it.
No, Doc got it.
Steel trap.
I said begins with an M.
Steel trap, guys.
Oh,
well, happy birthday, Alexandra.
Happy birthday, Alexandria. You little princess.
Were you thinking Nixon, Gladys?
Maybe.
All right. So some quick hitters. Darrell Henderson, ribs, cartilage injury, came back last week, looked pretty good. Elijah Mitchell, trending in the right direction. If he comes back, how they're going to divide up the backfield, your guess is as good as mine. Tony Jones, ankle injury, still testing pending. Wasn't really doing much before that. Probably droppable at this point. Diami Brown, knee injury week to week. Probably droppable. Wasn't doing much before that. Probably droppable at this point. Slayton, Shepard, a little more of the same. Might be back this week, might not. Just watch the practice reports. T. Higgins, same thing, except it's a shoulder. Missed week 3 and week 4. Let's keep our fingers crossed for week 5. Elijah Moore, almost out of the concussion protocol. And now we're done.
Who has the early game? Who has the London game next week, week 5?
I think it's Jets Falcons, if I'm not mistaken. How patriotic.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's an Atlanta legend anyway.
I don't really want to talk
NFL.
about Ryan right now. Thank you. She said Chargers + 3 and under. Weird for a 5-year-old.
That is strange, but
that is strange.
Okay.
There, B.
Okay.
She's your daughter, so there you go.
Taking after Daddy and his co-host always taking the under,
Chip
right?
off the old block there.
But yeah, it's a great time to get to this game preview. So Raiders at Chargers over under 51.5, and the Chargers are 3-point favorites. A check. But again, knowing that it might be a Raiders home game, maybe that should have been more of a pick'em.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, one injury that we didn't talk about that might impact this game, not a fantasy IDP, it's Kenneth Murray, the second-year linebacker, tore his ACL, out for the season. So does that, we talked about the hesitancy with Jacobs, but knowing that injury is there, is that helping the those who have to play Jacobs in any direction? Or is it still go with the wide receiver?
Still go with the wide receivers.
Yeah, I would say so. It looks like it was an ankle injury, and they're thinking he might be back this year, but they're not sure. They're going to put him on IR and just kind of see what happens. But either way, he's out for tonight, so that's more pertinent to what we're talking about.
Yeah, so for tonight, again, this Raiders-Chargers game. So one thing we always talk about are props. Right now we get a lot of our Bet MGM. And so started with the quarterback props. And producer Dan, again, couldn't be here, daughter's birthday, but still was kind enough to make us a show sheet and put out some polls on Twitter with some of these what people liked. So starting with, again, we said it's a receivers game more than a running back. Of course, start with the quarterbacks, passing to those receivers. So Derek Carr, his over-under is set at 285.5 passing yards. And for Justin Herbert, it's at 304.5. So almost a 20-yard difference between the two. So the polls, it was a 4-way poll, Carr under, Herbert over, Herbert under. And Herbert got 44% of the vote. So that seemed to be the one where everyone was kind of chiming towards. Dan did leave us a note here. The Chargers have allowed on average 210.66 pass yards per game, which is the 5th fewest on average in the NFL. Derek Carr averaged through 14 games 244 passing yards per game, I guess, in his career against. So it's higher than the average they've allowed this year, but it's still lower than that 285. But any thoughts to either of those quarterback passing yard lines?
Gladys.
I forgot your Raiders. You're taking the last one.
Doc's going last for every Raiders question. Sorry.
I can go.
I like Herbert over. I also like Carr over. I mean, you got to think of the defenses that Carr has gone up against, and he still passed for like over 300 yards on pretty good defenses. So I like both. I would go over on both. I like both of them over. I agree with Izzy over, but I would do Carr over too. Yes. My answer is yes.
Okay.
Also, I do have a question. James asking, do you guys do fantasy advice? Yes, any type of.
I guess that's the audience.
Football advice.
The ear of the beholder. I guess the eye of the beholder. I don't know. Do we do fantasy advice? I guess the question is, do we do good fantasy advice?
That's true. So ask away, and if we can answer, we will. If not,
James, whatever you got, fire away.
He does have a question. Trade Cook, Lamb. Whoa, for Henry Lockett and Henderson. Yikes! No. And Damian Harris for Henry. What trade? So he's going to trade Dalvin Cook, CeeDee Lamb, Chris Godwin, and Damian Harris, and he's going to get Derrick Henry, Tyler Lockett, who's hurt, I think, and Darrell Henderson, who's hurt, I think. I'm going to go no, but what do you guys say?
Well, I'm interpreting the Lamb/Godwin as giving up one or the other. And if you have a preference on which one he should give up. Yeah, as you say, Lamb or Godwin.
My preference is neither.
It'll be a three for three. So I think again, it's running backs and for a wide receiver, kind of on each side. So it's Cook to Henry, Damian Harris to Henderson, and then Lamb or Godwin to Lockett.
PPR.
That's actually.
I'm feeling like I need to.
Yeah, that's true.
PPR.
Yeah, full point PPR, half point PPR, non
scoring.
Which I could speak to this. If it's PPR, it's a no for me. As far as Cook and Henry, you're probably getting the better end of it with Henry. Okay, cool. So Henry, you're probably getting a little bit better than Cook as far as it's been now. CeeDee Lamb versus Lockett or Godwin versus Lockett. It's no contest. I'll take the Lamb/Godwin part. And then Damian Harris, Henderson. Henderson at least is going to get some catches. Damian Harrison's going to get no catches. Even though he does have the rib injury, he's back. So I'm still saying ride with what you got. Like if you're going to make a move off of it, then it's got to be something that doesn't feel like a lateral move. Like Lamb had a couple of bad games. Godwin ran into a tough defense. Cook could be back in a week or two and be back to his normal self. Lockett's inconsistent. There's too many question marks on either side, so I just say dance with who brung you and stick with what you got. Kyle, what do you think?
I think I actually would make this trade, and I think it's the Harris to Henderson upgrade. And I think you touched on it, Doc. Harris is gonna seems like he has no passing game participation whatsoever. I Cook to Henry, it's pretty lateral. Right now for the rest of the season, though, it's tough to not say you'd run Henry, and it's kind of tough to not view him as especially if this is redraft, viewing Henry as the best pill. And if everything is this close, I want the best player in the deal. So I'd actually say make the trade. Now, in terms of who would you rather?
You're a big running back guy, and I'm more of a wide receiver guy. So it's the Lamb Godwin thing that shakes it for me. Like you're not getting CeeDee Lamb off my roster with dynamite. I don't care who you throw at me. It's just not happening. So, Godwin, that might be a different story. But again, pieces of that Tampa Bay offense, like they can explode for, 8 catches, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns on any given week. And there's no end in sight. Like, yeah, Tampa Bay's looking a little down because they ran into the Patriots and the greatest defensive-minded coach maybe of all time, probably of all time. Let's see what happens next week. It might be a little different. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only caveat, just to make sure, I wouldn't do this trade in Dynasty, like going age curve from Lamb to Lockett. But in a redraft 1 year, Lamb right now coming off a poor game against the Panthers, who yes does have a good defense, but as a slot receiver where they like to play him, although it seems like they've experimented moving him around a lot. But that's against a tough pass rush like that. That's the type of game I'd actually expect Lamb to thrive in. Instead, it seems like he went to other options. So again, redraft, I'm fine with it, but yeah, Dynasty, I would agree with my co-host and say not to make.
Yeah, I guess the question, James, is do you really have a strong feeling on this? Are you kind of 50-50, or are you feeling one way or the other? And, you're just kind of saying, am I crazy? Am I looking for people to talk me out of it? Because if you feel really strongly one way or the other, I would always advise you to go with that, regardless of what anybody else says. Right, Gladys?
I don't want to talk about it.
Well, because we were talking about that.
Yeah, we're talking about my So
yeah, talk about just off the air, right? Like just trusting your gut more than even people with their own shows here. So thanks for tuning into the show, of course.
Yeah, James, I hope that's useful. But if you had a strong feeling, I don't like how injury prone
Doesn't
Cook
like
is.
how injury Cook is. So
neither do
this
I.
Sounds like
but
he's trying.
Changed. It's just the way he is. This is who he is.
So it sounds like he's trying to get Dalvin Cook off his roster, and if it's from that mindset of that's the leverage play, you're trying to get rid of Cook off your roster.
Yeah. In that case,
this is a pretty
good.
This is a pretty good price. Not selling low on him at that price. So
I totally agree.
In that vein, I would maybe lean towards it now. Who would you rather trade, Lamb or Godwin? Gladys, I think Doc's already kind of made it clear he would rather trade Godwin.
I would.
Between the two, if he was to make this trade, who would be the wide receiver you'd want to give up?
Oof. In a PPR, they're both on explosive. They're both on explosive offenses. They both play a majority of their snaps out of the slot. If we're assuming Gronk is out, I would rather get rid of Lamb and keep Godwin because I think Godwin is going to get some more of those touches. So
in full
Lamb,
point PPR, it's been 3 points per game difference, 19.8 for Godwin and 16 point. So as of this year producing, and I mean Locke gets his points per game is 21. So like technically in terms of, and again, what's happened 3 weeks through 3 weeks doesn't mean it's going to keep going this year, but so far Lockett's been the more productive one. So I would agree with Gladys and say I would trade Cook, Lamb, and Harris for that Henry Lockett Henderson package. Again, Gladys doesn't say she would do it, but she would rather go Lamb over Godwin. Anyway, so Doc, did you want to chime in on the pack quarterbacks, or do we move over to Austin Eckler?
The game's about to start.
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay, the quick answer. I like Gladys' answer of I think both are viable to go over. Austin Eckler, 3 different lines here. So over under 1.5 carries, 53.5 rush yards, and 98.5 combined rushing and receiving. So the poll that Dan gave, it was Eckler. The two over under on the carries, under on the rush yards, and under on the combined yards. So of those three, or of those, which line is kind of standing out to you?
I'll go first. So I need Austin Eckler on my dynasty team this week. So I'm going. I'm winning one of these things. Damn it! So I'm going under on all three. So I say Eckler under carries, under rush yards, under combined yards, and I'm going to be right on one of these. I'm going to win the matchup, or I'm going to win the prop bets. That's it.
Wow. I like the combined, but I would go over on the combined yards. I would under, like they're not really giving him the ball in rushes, so I would go under in the carries and 53.5 rush yards. So if I'm going under on the rush, that means he's getting, let's see what his average is in receiving yards. 52, 61, 52 and 61, 54, 55.
That's right what you'd need there. If he was under on the rush at like 50 yards, and then you still had the 40 receiving, you could hit that or if I guess 48, you'd be able to hit that combined.
I might have to go under on all of them. I like the 98.5. I think he's going to get a lot of receiving yards. But I don't know that his rushing yards are going to elevate it high enough. So I'm going under on the carries, under on the rush yards. No, I'm going to go over on the combined. I'm going to stick with that.
I think I agree with you completely there, Gladys. Under on carries, and as a result, like I feel like the carries and the rush yard are kind of tied together. If you think he's going to get more than 14 carries, he's probably going to get more than 55 or around 55 rush yards. So like under to both of that, and then again, it's do you think he catches enough receptions? Going on Carr on the passing yards and over on Herbert on the passing yards, right? Like you like both of those. The Corey in a high scoring game would kind of lead that direction too. Dan gave his notes here. So last year was first season as the lead back. So after Melvin Gordon left, played the Raiders once last year. He went 13 carries for 60 yards on the ground, 4 catches for 19 yards in the air. So he got 79 combos, which would be 20 yards short of that total, but also also last year, he was dealing with it, not fully healthy. The first year, the Herbert system, it seems like when he first got, he wasn't catching that many passes, like only 4 targets in that game, right? Like I'd expect him to see more than targets, so I could see him making up for that. I think it's going to be close though. Like it could be one of those where if it beat the over on the combined yards, it's probably just over 100. No other games versus Raiders has he amassed more than 20 rushing yards, by the way, and he's only over 3 targets. So it's hoping that this is kind of a new offensive coordinator this year, and leading through him through the pass is kind of what we're relying on. And then we'll pass over receivers.
Better the Raiders' defense is than they were last year. They're a formidable defense.
Forcing to pass through them.
Right, and as far as I can tell right now, Lamar Jackson had 86 rushing yards against them. Tyson Williams had 65. That's the most. Like Najee Harris had 38 rushing yards against them, and who did they play last week? Whoever they played last week had less than 40, I think. So
is this the part of the show where I remind you guys that past performance is no guarantee of future results, or is that implied?
I think we did mention that earlier. So always good to remind
okay.
And maybe the co-host as well.
And Allen so Jared says Allen versus Williams, set on Keenan Allen, but it's Mike Williams' birthday. Well, I'll tell you what, my friend, you have the Midas touch literally. So I think you should be telling us like who to put out there.
I think Jared could think. I think of 15,000 reasons why Jared.
I could think of approximately 15,000 reasons why we should be listening to you and not the other way around, my friend.
Maybe we should have invited Jared on the show. Sorry, a little late now, Jared. Do you want to join for the last 5? So looking at some of these lines, just to get to this Allen Williams question. So the Bet MG has over under for Williams at 75 receiving yards. Keenan Allen a little higher at 82.5. So a 7-yard difference. If Jared's asking just for fantasy, touchdowns, right now it's been all Mike Williams. And Mike Williams' birthday, I feel like he's going to definitely throw a touchdown now, but just because he has been so touchdown consistent this year, I think Keenan Allen only touchdown on the season. Maybe that flips, maybe that's something that needs to flip, because last year he had 9, which was a career high, actually. So was last year just an aberration for that. And Williams has had the big touchdown years before. So I think if it was total fantasy points, I'd go with Williams as well. If we're talking about yards or receptions, I think that might lean to Keenan Allen.
Yeah, this is really going to be a good test for the Raiders defense. I mean, they certainly have been playing better than last year, but that is, the bar is set very low there. So they're kind of middle of the pack, and it feels like as a Raiders fan, they're like the 85 Bears. So we're going to have to see, is Mike Williams, are they going to be able to bracket him and keep him under control, and that going to leave him susceptible to Keenan Allen and Cook underneath picking him apart, Eckler picking him apart? Are they really going to be able to scheme for this whole, explosive offense? I'm really not sure how it's going to play out. It's going to be interesting.
Did you see that question? The wide receivers, too many wide receivers on our bench.
Oh, thank you for that. I have too many wide receivers. Thielen's on my bench. I have Logan Thomas. Should I trade Thielen for Hawkinson straight up PPR, or could I get more? I'm fine with it. If you need the tight end, and it's a more scarce position, there's only a tight end as good as Hawkins, and there might only be 4 of them in the league. So if you can get one of them, and you have already too many wide receivers from your own admittance, I'm fine making that trade.
Same here. Totally agree.
Opposition, Gladys?
No. I mean, I like Hawkins.
We're also being asked Waller or Mike Williams.
Waller. Waller. Is it PPR?
And this is interesting because it's less yards than what Will has and Allen, for instance. But again, are we thinking maybe Waller is a better touch than that? He is the number 1 red zone target, whereas is it Williams, is it Allen? So better touchdown chance for Waller? Is that kind of what we're thinking for fantasy points total?
Yeah, and I'm thinking he's going to get more targets.
Yeah, I'm just thinking targets, upside,
Yeah, I think he has a higher ceiling, more targets.
The answer is Waller.
So So do you guys like that 71 receiving yards? The fact that it's lower than Williams and Allen, you like that better than those lines?
Out of those three, yeah, I like the Waller one the best, and I'm okay being wrong there. But that seems like a low number for Waller, and he comes under that. I'll tip my hat to you, but I'll go over that.
And that's what I was thinking too. And then again, notes are kind of they open your eyes. So Darren Waller's only lost one time versus the Chargers, and his average is 7.75 targets, 5.25 receptions, 62.25 yards, and half a touchdown. So his career average against the Chargers is about 9 yards less than the underline. But the last time that they played the Chargers, he went 12 targets, 9 catches, 150 yards, and 1 touchdown. So what Dan's saying is that it completely skews his average because his how many? It doesn't say how many games he played, but the rest of his games, his 3 other games, he only catches 99 yards and 1 touchdown combined over those 3 games, as opposed for 150 and 1 just in that one game alone. But he's also now developed an alpha weapon for the Raiders, which wasn't maybe the case 2 years ago, as clearly. So, so far his average wouldn't be good for the yards, but I think, again, as Doc says, the past performance, just because he did it 3 out of the last 4 games, maybe that one game is more revelatory.
I look at it as like he's shown the potential to do it and to do it pretty easy. So there's that too. It's just a question of is he going to have a night or not? So that's kind of the way I look at it. Is like he definitely has the ability to do it, and it's not a high bar for him by his standards when he has a game. So if the game script works out and he's getting open, and with the linebacker injury that the LA Chargers have, maybe that opens things up even a little more. And the Raiders wide receivers have shown that they're actually formidable. They can't just kind of bracket Waller and take him out of the game. The Raiders can do some other things that maybe in years past they couldn't. So there's that too. They have other ways to go with it. If they try to take Waller out of the game, they're going to have to adjust, or they're going to be in some trouble, I think. The Chargers, I mean.
So yes, and then it gets the balance. If they spend too much, okay, suddenly these other players beat them. Then do they flip and add extra attention to those other players?
Yeah,
and then suddenly Waller's open.
Then it opens up. Yeah, so that kind of chess game. The game.
So the $15,000 man is saying he's captaining Waller tonight.
That's it. Where's my phone? Let me get on that.
Yeah, get to the lineups quick. So I think we're all kind of in agreement that of the receiver lines, Waller was the favorite. Also have Henry Ruggs over under 45.5 receiving yards. In this, are you tempted to take the under at all, or because of his big playability, you don't want to risk an under on a player like Ruggs?
Yeah, I'll take a shot on the over there. Why not? And it just takes one. Just takes one, and then you could be in the clubhouse.
Again, it correlates with Derek Carr. If you're going over on his passing yards, then if he can spare 46 for Ruggs.
Sure.
What are you feeling, Gladys?
Over on Ruggs.
All right, so kind of a lot of overs. So
Gladys knows that Ruggs can go over. She's still got scorch mark. The Steelers still have scorch marks on her from that 61-yarder that he smoked them with when the Raiders played the Steelers. We don't want to talk about that.
I don't remember that. I know.
Yeah, you must have been getting a snack or something. I'll send you the video of it later.
Foster or kicker. So this is almost like, is this Scott Fishbowl scoring? If so, I might be leaning towards the kickers. They're either Carlson or it starts with a V. I can't remember the Chargers kicker's name. I actually picked him up in Scott Fish in case either Herbert or Allen didn't play. If it's the case, I might. If it's just normal scoring, I feel like the upside is still with the tight ends. As much as Carlson, maybe he could score 14 points, but I guess Foster Moreau, if he scores 2 touchdowns, that's 12 plus the yards, it's probably about 14 as well. So, yeah, that's tricky. Actually, I might say a kicker just because it's a dome game.
Yeah, Foster Moreau's had 2 games. He's had 3 receptions in those 2 games. He did have a touchdown against Pittsburgh, but who didn't on the Raiders?
Go with the kicker. Go with the kicker.
There you go.
So, yeah. So, all right. So I think it's
if the people from the Going for 2 network say take a kicker, then that's pretty strong. That's a pretty strong endorsement for the kicker.
That is true. That is very true. But yeah, so we'll end out just game prediction. So again, 51.5 over under. So pick the over under, and then also 3 or the 3-point underdog Raiders. We'll let Doc go last. So Gladys, do you want to start?
I take the points in the Raiders.
So you're saying over and Raiders, at least the Chargers not covering the 3-point spread.
Yeah, not covering the 3-point.
All right.
So what's the over under? Just to clarify,
51.5.
Okay. Go ahead, Kyle.
So yeah, I think Richard likes the Chargers kicker again. Doesn't have his name because can say his name or spell it. But yeah, go with the Chargers.
Nobody has this guy's name.
I think. I don't know. I think the Chargers kind of erase some a little bit of stink on the franchise in the close games. They can't win the close games, right? And it did it against the Chiefs of all teams. Herbert's got the swagger. I think, I think we all say he's the better quarterback game, so I'll go with the better quarterback winning and take the Chargers and take the over.
All right. It's Tristan Vizcaino, by the way, is the kicker for the Chargers.
Vizcaino. Thank you very much.
Yeah. That took a little doing, but yeah. So as far as my prediction, I said it already. Raiders are going to win 73-6. Take the over. Take the Raiders. Done deal. Pack it up. Blackout.
Raiders cover the over on their own.
Raiders playing a home game. That's it. SoFi Stadium's the new home for the Raiders. 73-6. Raiders win. Going away. Superstar.
You could say it's their summer home. They go once a year.
There you go.
It's always something anyway. Yes, hopefully, even though it's the fall and it's that season, hope your joy and enthusiasm springs eternal, and you constantly come back to the Going for Two Luck. For all the great shows we have here, not just the 2-point conversion, the Armchair Show on Wednesday, on Tuesday, Cheat Sheet Friday nights. There's literally content every night. The former show. That's Thursday nights too. Sunday mornings. Gladys,
actually, still kind of your current show. I think you made more episodes than you missed this year so far.
That's true. I've been on the last 2 weeks. So appreciate Hamid for always. But yeah, Going for Two live on Twitter at @going4_ written content as well. But Gladys, was there anything you wanted to plug in particular?
Nope. I just want to say happy birthday, Alexandra. Happy late birthday. Sorry about that. And good luck tonight, everyone who's playing DFS and fantasy needs points. Good luck on your 8 points, man. Hope your kicker does it for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Clutch Carlson, hopefully.
Clutch Carlson.
Doc, anything you want to share?
Yeah, so thanks to all the viewers and listeners for bringing some questions, bringing some real brain teasers. We really had to think on this one, so it was good. Hopefully we helped you out. But thank you to everybody who wrote in and who watched. We'll give a very brief plug for my book on injury analysis. Injuries suck, but your fantasy team doesn't have to. I talked about specific injury terminology, how to read between the lines of player and coach speak and major media reports. Just exactly the same stuff I do on this show, but the benefit is I teach you how to do it, so you don't have to wait. It's not super thick, as Gladys is showing you, so you can get through it. You can even use it as a reference. You got a couple of injuries, you can thumb through it and get to the part that really concerns your guys, and then get back to your life. It's it's available in paperback version and e-version, so you want to read it on your phone. You're not old school like me. You don't like paper books. You want to take it into the bathroom with you, read it on your break. You can do that. Available on Amazon. There's a link on my Twitter page at TFSDoc. It's got a 4.9 aggregate review score. Please go check it out. You won't regret it. I guarantee it. And thank you guys for putting up with me and my Raiders super fandom. Now that they're not terrible for once, I can come out of my shell a little bit. And I'm just really excited. Always a pleasure to be here with you guys and on a Monday night. And thank you again to the viewers. Thanks for everyone at Going for Two. And please check out those other shows. There's some really great content, some really knowledgeable people. And it's really good stuff. Just really happy to be here. Really happy to be a part of it.
Kyle?
Yeah, I guess it's up to me to end us and lead us out of here. So I'm at Senra Says. Yeah, I just encourage everyone to check out all we're doing at Going for Two. Gladys has tons of great articles. I actually, Gladys, I went through your eye this week. I did start Rashawn Jenkins. Now, he didn't play the greatest, but I started him over Jabril Peppers 0. So at least thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Richard just says, love your guys' service. Thanks for answer, support. Just what I want. Again, I hope
right, Richard.
We're glad
Thanks
to help
for
you out,
watching.
Richard.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Richard.
Yes, very much. Yeah, we have a lot of people today. Jared, James,
Izzy,
Brendan, Izzy.
Yeah, sure, Izzy made an appearance. I guess we have to mention Dan, don't we?
B-League and
Brandon, Ryan.
Alexandra's dad. Thanks.
Happy birthday again, Alexandra.
That's maybe how he'll be referred to from now on as Alexandra's
I know.
dad. But
From now on, he's Alexandra's dad.
as he should
That's
be.
who he is.
As he should be.
All right, you guys. I have to go. My dog's trying to move a bed out of his room.
Good luck with all that.
All right. And thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you, everyone.
2 point conversion. Bye.